Thanks, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic.
Michael.
Uh, Jamie, thank you for sharing your story. It was wonderful to hear. Uh, Try and go smooth here. Born in Seattle, grew up in Magnolia. Wonderful parents, beautiful home. Uh, Built a soapbox derby racer with, the real wheels with a bunch of leftover scrap wood. Uh, my dad was a restaurateur in Seattle, worked a lot, most most all the time, but had a real sense of a real solid character, a man of courage and real quiet, and uh, big Thanksgiving dinners in our home, and he'd show up right as it was time to carve the turkey. Right, it was really really cool. My mom was a they were dancers together in the 30s. Everybody danced, right? The big bands, and she was Spanish, and little waist and a big accordion, pleated skirts, and they'd go spinning and dancing, and so there was this momentum of socializing that happened in Seattle, right? Uh, so this is what I was raised and brought into, and uh, at about 6 years old, my dad wasn't around hardly at all, and wasn't staying at home anymore, and they told me they'd gotten a separation. And about this time, I was going into first grade at Our Lady of Fatima with the Salt and Pepper Corps and the little parochial school, and started studying the Baltimore Catechism. And so by about 8 years old, when they told me they were divorced, I had just learned that they were excommunicated from the church, damned to hell. And, I'm this little boy riding his bicycle, loving life on Magnolia with this loss, it's really hard to describe the memory of the division that happened in me of really not knowing what to do. But I knew I had to trust and rely upon me, that I didn't know what was going to happen in the future of our family and what was going to happen after death even. So you forge, what ended up happening is I became a little thief. I stole my dad's collected coins out of the bottom drawer of the stove to buy candy. Uh, we would steal money off the papers down in the village to go buy candy. We would, come out of summer school because I'd never paid attention in class, and we would steal popsicles from the J&J pharmacy on our way through town. There was, I don't know why I want to get into this childhood stuff, but it sets the stage for the kind of person I grew up being. I drank in high school. I dropped out of college at the UW in my first quarter, smoking hash and weed and drinking. I had, good jobs in my dad's restaurants. We decided we were going to raft the Green River one day, and I had to be to work at 6 p.m. to work the graveyard shift or the evening, 6 to 8 in the morning or something like that. Working the pantry at the 13 Coins. I got home about 3 from rafting the Green River, drinking wine all day, floating on the river. Just going to take a little nap. I think I woke up about midnight, and I was too embarrassed and ashamed to even go to pick up the rest of the shift. I couldn't even face anybody, just took getting terminated. My dad had already passed away. I have had 4 arrests for DWI. To show you how far, I think I was 19 with the first one. I pled guilty in the court, and they fined me $250. And I had to go to an alcohol information school, and it was pretty clear they just wanted you to admit you were alcoholic, and I admitted I was alcoholic because that's what they wanted to hear. Didn't know what it meant, really. Chased the dream of restaurants, and ended up partners with a guy on Aurora. used to be Cedars of Lebanon. Before that, it was King Oscar's. It was a Scandinavian smorgasbord. We used to go there as a family, and I knew the owners of the building. They were our landlord, and the guy who was selling the restaurant. I was a restaurateur kid, so everybody was okay with me assuming the debt. And the thing about owning a restaurant is now you can drink all the time. You can have and plus you're the partner, so you can drink before they open the doors. You can drink while you're hosting people. You can close the doors at 2 a.m. and drink scotch and play Liar's Dollar with your piano player. Yet, like you were talking about, it's acceptable. It's okay. Well, shit, you own the restaurant. You can drink anytime you want. And so in this course of time, in fact, this gentleman back here, when I was 18, when my dad had passed away, his dearest best friend was a guy named Bob Hunter. And Bob would come in and we'd play cribbage at Simonetti's and drink. And then we bought the Grove and we'd go down there and drink. And I'd send he and his wife home in a cab. Well, I was like 18 and I end up I go, Bob, let's go drinking. Let me go out with you today. We end up at the Hippo on Aurora. And there's like 5 of these guys sitting there with this old World War II airline vet or, pilot. And they're betting on which fly is going to take off on the windowsill first, right? I mean, the grandiosity of these guys was just fabulous. But so anyway, I'm married now. We've got 2 children. I've bounced around from about 3 or 4 different restaurants. I'm partners in 2. My wife is really concerned with these arrests for DWI and the limiting income that it fosters on us, that it imposes, and she starts leaving the big book around. Maybe it'd be a good idea to go to check out Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, in an effort to save my marriage, I end up at Lake Union Men's Stag. But my story, I never got a DWI snorting coke or smoking weed. So the coke and the weed were always with me in the car, and I would, go to my A meetings. Well, across the table from me, this guy, Big Jim, he was a welder at Todd Shipyards, and he looked like Brutus out of the Popeye commercial, right? The T-shirt, the bib overalls. And he would talk about, this little house he was able to get in West Seattle and the white picket fence and how he takes care of his roses. And it was just incongruent with who he was as a guy. And he looks across the table at me one night and he says, you can't change seats on the Titanic. She's going down. And I thought I was this, a really nice hidden secret that I could stay self-serving with this intoxicating drugs, and here this guy picked me clean. Well, I was coming up on a year, the hypocrisy in me wouldn't allow me to take a coin. I bailed and said, I found Jesus. I'm going to be going to church. And Bob Hunter says, well, good luck to you. We'll save a seat for you. 6 or 8 months later, after relapsing with beer and scotch and still using drugs, at this point, my wife says, I don't think I want to live with you anymore. This is, I think that the finding icing on the cake was when I took some sort of a downer, something to help me sleep after snorting coke and drinking all day. And she was like, don't you think you have a problem? And I'm like, problem? This is a solution. I got to go to bed. So here I was now out on my own, basically. Whatever income I was able to generate was going to spousal and child support. I'm living on the sofa of a couple of gay buddies of mine. I've got a Blazer that's barely limping along, an old big gas guzzler. And I'm using everything that I can line up, basically what we've learned, this Rolodex for ease and comfort, to try and make now somehow be palatable. And that was my bottom. I came to the end of that day completely emaciated and broken spirit and alone. And it was the same dead end. I was going to hell. I was in hell. That was the same thing as I felt when I was a little kid when I thought I was doomed by what had happened to my clothes and the church and stuff. So it turned out it was a Thursday night. I ended up back at Lake Union Men's Stag. A few of us talked over the weekend. Tuesday night, I ended up at Lake Union. They needed a coffee maker. I volunteered to be the new coffee maker. Guy pulls me aside and he goes, "Hey, I got to tell you, anybody who's made coffee for Wedgwood Men's Stag is guaranteed sobriety." So I'm like, I'm in. And so that gets me started. Now we get to about 3 years sober, and my dear friend, who's got about 4 years more than I do, who we would drink together. When I was 21, I was running the J&M Cafe in Pioneer Square, and this guy hired Jay Stinnett as the service bartender. So he was making drinks for the servers rather than serving guests. And my servers were running booze on dinner trays. Okay, and it's hard to imagine at $1.60 a drink, you're turning $7,000-8,000 a Friday night in booze sales. So Jay would come out of a blackout in the well mixing drinks. He ended up under the sidewalk at the Merchants Cafe with a 4-stooled bar with heated amyl nitrate and a snifter behind the bar in case anybody, was needing a little lift. And he was working for a fifth of Grand Marnier and tips. And the reason he drank Grand Marnier is after an all-nighter, we ended up at the doghouse at 6 a.m. And he couldn't get the cigarette lighter to his cigarette. And he's trying to hold this thing. And the bartender looks at him and he goes, "Oh, I know exactly what you need." And he pours him a double shot of this Grand Marnier and sets it on the table. And he's got both hands and he sucks this baby down. And his hand was just as steady as that. And that's all he drank from then on. Straight Grand Marnier. GM on the rocks. So I'm locked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm loving the meetings. I'm working the steps. I'm reading the 12 and 12. I'm secretary at Richmond Beach on Monday nights. Tuesdays at Wedgwood. Thursdays at Lake Union. I'm writing an inventory. I take a fifth step with a kind of a Jesuit priesty kind of guy that I admired. And when we were all done, he went, "Great, that's good. We'll burn that." And he threw that in the fire. He's since passed away. Did 6th and 7th of the best, bounced through a few amends, and got into. I loved the 12 and 12 when it talks about starting meditation in step 11, where just to read St. Francis's prayer and think about what he's talking about, and that wide-eyed wonder of how does a guy ever think like this? To talk about being the conduit, the channel to let God just flow through. I want peace. I want light, freedom, right? This guy just wants to carry it. So it's a wonderful eye opener to think about selfishness, how deep. And I'm a landscape contractor. Once I hit that bottom, I ended up with a little paperback of yoga and a bicycle, and I went to Picnic Point. And I sat on the beach and I looked out at the Puget Sound, and it was like, well, you're 32 years old. You get a do-over. Who are you? What do you really want to do? This is your one spin around this rock. And so I wanted to figure out a way to work in the mountains. And so I ended up bidding 27 miles of hiking trails, was low on the bid, put together a crew of nephews and friends, and we, I think it was a $1,500 bid, and it cost me $3,000 to do the job. But the Forest Service was happy. It got me out of the city, the knot off my neck, got some health back in my, and great fortune. 3 or 4 days in, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Lake Olali, but it has been raining for 2 days. All of us, our rain gear is soaked on the inside. We're getting low on food. We've got frying pans with us and pickaxes and pruning shears and canned, chili. And anyway, we get to the top at Lake Olali, and I'll be go to hell if there isn't a cabin that the CCC built. And somebody's put about 4 or 5 fires worth of firewood stacked inside where it's dry. There's 2 queen size bunk beds with no mattress or anything, but at least you got something to lay on other than the floor. And we were able to light up a fire and dry all our gear. And the sun broke, and we're fishing in the lake. And I mean, that's what's in my life today. Is I don't know what's around the corner, but this trudging deal, it's kind of like being in the service, where you're keeping your eyes on the horizon. You got everything with you that you need to survive, and as you're lumbering along the way, you're helping people that come along. It's a fabulous way of living, uh, and it incorporates who we are as individuals, what our talents and abilities are, but it also uh, because you have a purpose, I start forgetting about me most of the time. You're just alive. So I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but so we get back to where I'm 3.5 years sober. I've been to this guy's Jay Stinnett. He's going to get his 6th birthday cake in L.A. We share my airfare. I fly down. I'm going to give him this bullshit little piece of baked item at his men's stag home group. Everybody sings him happy birthday. And we're sitting in his apartment on the Strand afterwards with one of his sponsees, Clinton, and the phone rings. And he goes, Clinton, it's God on the phone. Get the caddy. And he, okay. So he hangs up the phone. The 3 of us jump in this caddy. We drive all the way across LA, and here's a guy who wants to talk to somebody from Alcoholics Anonymous. And Clinton and I are going nonstop about, this happened to me and that happened to me. And, this is what I know about this and that, and helping him with this experience where he's at. Every question this guy had, Stinnett opened the big book and answered it out of the book. And what I watched happen was the ego thing that we want to bounce up against and say, well, I don't want to listen to you. You can't put that up against a book. And so that's how versed he was in the book. So the next morning, we go to Scotty's, a noon meeting, and this guy, Emmett, introduces himself. And 6 months later, renting a room from a guy named Rick Breezy up in Edmonds, because I'm still divorced and seeing my kids on the weekend and starting a landscape company. He says, hey, instead of going to Wedgwood, why don't you come to Lake City Young People's with me tonight? So I run down to Lake City Young People's with him. Anybody from out of town? Yeah, I'm from Hermosa Beach. So I follow him into a 12 and 12 meeting. They're reading the 12th step, which you all know it's too long, so you read like half of it in a meeting. Everybody starts to share, and they ignore the 12th step and carrying the message. They're talking about their relationship and their job, and it's just like a 3rd column inventory bitch session, right? It gets around to this lady, and she says, I'm alcoholic, and if I don't hear something tonight that helps me not drink, I'm going to drink, and if I go drink, I'm going to die. More bitch. Comes around to Emmett, and he goes, hey, they discourage cross-talking here, but I can't go by without talking to you about Alcoholics Anonymous. He goes, there's a spiritual logo that our fellowship implores, and it's a triangle and a circle. And he goes, you got unity, recovery, and service. He goes, the unity side of the triangle is held in place by the 12 traditions. There's a spiritual principle for each tradition. And, you're on that side of the triangle. You're here at a meeting. He goes, you turn that corner, and there's the recovery side of the triangle has 12 steps because it's for our mind. You got the body, the mind, and the spirit. He goes, our mind, we're mentally ill. That's why we need the 12 steps. And there's a spiritual principle for each one of those. And he goes, it's pretty clear, you can't drink. So you've turned the corner, but you're just starting on the second side of the triangle. He goes, once you have this awakening, you get to carry a message to the alcoholic who still suffers. And there's 12 concepts of service outlined in the GSO manual. And there's a spiritual principle for each one of those. Once those 36 principles are alive and well in your life, you're home free. And if you take that triangle and imagine it being a pyramid, it gets to rest on, something we call God. And it's solid versus, if you turn it upside down, that little point is you. And that's why it's so tippy and can't stand up on its own. Well, I'd never heard that before. I've been going to meetings for 3.5 years at that point, and pulled them aside afterwards. And I said, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is brand new." And I'm at the point where I'm sober, and I'm glad I'm sober, but I don't have what he's talking about. And so we ended up eventually with about 8 or 9 people. He was up here staying with his sister, helping her out with her kids in her basement. Started reading the big book from the title page through 164, one paragraph at a time, one sentence at a time. Dictionaries, trying to work the steps as they're outlined as the people put it down. And the big book actually came alive. And I can remember having a roadblock at the third step, saying, I don't get it. I wanted to be authentic about this thing. I wanted what the 12 steps were promising. And he looked at me and he said, "You have to do this, but you can't do it." And immediately the resentment flew up in me. I mean, I was just like, "What do you mean I have to do it? I can't do it." And then he gave me a stupid kiss on the cheek. Well, we were in Ballard at the time at a little gathering of people wanting more out of sobriety. I slipped out the back door. By this time, I had a pregnant girlfriend that I'd broken up with and was married to a second girlfriend who was also pregnant, right? And the last time I spoke at one of these things, when he introduced me as Michael the Breeder. So anyway, I walked from Ballard all the way over 80th to Lake City Way, all the way up Lake City Way through Lake Forest Park, and I finally get to Clifford's Restaurant overlooking the Kenmore airfield down there, and I'm like a 9-year-old boy kicking a can. I got to do this, but I can't do it. I got to do this, but I can't do it. And like a light in a closet, when you're looking for something and it's pitch black in there, the light comes on. It's like, it's already done. It's the me who thinks I'm somehow separate, or that there's something I have to do. That I already am God's kid. This power that's greater than me is ever present, always with me. It's basically what beats my heart. It is the power source. There's no extension cord coming out of me. I don't have to think about digesting food. And the thought of, the spirituality is like a buzzword. And but to just finally recognize that there's a mystery that is alive and well right within me, and I've missed it and taken it for granted and abused every opportunity and advantage that I've had because somehow I wanted more. It's grossly humbling. And I have had full expression of sorrow when it's clear to me that once again I've forgotten who the boss is, who the source is, what my life really is. The thing that separates me from a bag of bones laying here is this power. It's not me. It's not mine. It just is. And so at the very best I could do is just shut the hell up and pay attention, tell the truth, and move forward through the day. And I'm telling you. So that opened up a whole new inventory. it got me to, go to nurseries where I'd been stealing plants and to admit being a thief and paying, you're doing the right thing. We know that happens around here. I'm sure going in the door that I'm going to be excommunicated from buying from this place, that the owner is going to be absolutely pissed at me. He's going to call other nurseries. My business is going to suffer. I mean, the fear, the false evidence appearing real that this mechanism can generate is obscene. And to get in there with, this is what I got to do. I got my little card, right? And Ernie sees me drive in and he goes, "Hey, you look really happy today. What's going on?" And I'm just shitting bricks because I got to admit this guy, I'm a thief, right? And I go, I'm just getting some plants. Ernie, you got a few minutes for me? Yeah, I'll be here. Come on in. And I said, yeah, I'm a thief. I'm trying to, stay sober, work these 12 steps as best I can, and Alcoholics Anonymous. And he goes, "Well, yeah, we know that happens." He goes, "What do you think you owe me?" And I said, "Well, probably at least $500. He said, "Well, go get your checkbook." He goes, "Well, you're doing the right thing, kid." And that was it. Done and over. Everything I was afraid of was gone. Is that time? No. Okay. So, I guess in summation, you can work these steps. 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. There's a path. It's not even a path. We're already here. My youngest daughter, who was the pregnancy of my second marriage. Her mother she actually died of opiate complications. And my wife now and I have raised her since she was 6.5 years old. And as a result of her troubled adolescence and trying to sort out which way to go, she decided that having a job and paying your bills and being responsible was more secure and enjoyable than buying the wanderlust of addiction and false promises and stuff that her mother kept selling her. And so currently, her first birth was a generous delivery for friends who couldn't have children. So she was their surrogate mom. Her second birth is our newest grandson. He's 18 months old. His name Hudson, who is absolutely the prince of the universe as far as I'm concerned. Happiest, solidest, fearless, and he stops and he'll just check shit out at 18 months. She's pregnant right now again with a second surrogate birth for the same couple so that their family can grow and their daughter can have a sibling. So she's at Green Lake with Hudson last week. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Bob Earl, but he'd done a lot of work with Inner Child and Around 12 Steps. And he was speaking at a gay convention down in Seattle years ago. And I remember, sitting through a bunch of lesbian women going, if God doesn't want, gay people in heaven, I don't want to go to heaven. But anyway, I wanted to hear Bob Earl. So somewhere after that, I pull over on the freeway and I tell this little boy that was hurt when he was a young kid that I will not go anywhere ever again that he can't come with me, that I accept complete responsibility for the parental duties to this little boy that I remember and love. And it's who I am. He's the guy who flies kites off Magnolia Boulevard and, rode bicycles from Kentucky to Seattle and hikes into the Cascades and helps people. We're a collection of people and memories, right? Our whole lives. So my daughter's walking by Green Lake with this little Hudson, and she's teaching him, look both ways. We got to cross the street here, and there's, people jogging and cars coming by. She texts me and she goes, it dawned on me that I won't go anywhere anymore I'll never go anywhere that Hudson can't come to. And because she's heard me tell that, moment of the Bob Earl deal. And we only get a short minute on this planet and we're dead. So if we have a chance to affect the people that we know and love based on our sincerity and embrace of life and appreciation for what it is, that connection with my daughter, my son, he bought another house up on Bainbridge. I flew to Reading. My oldest boy is 40 something, super successful. We drive from Reading all the way up to, in a truck because I can't get, I don't know, something was wrong with the airlines and snow or something. On the drive, I said, I don't know if I've ever really made clear, full amends to you for the kind of dad, how I let you down, through those years. And his memory was, I was just sad to see you sad, Dad. And you're not sad anymore. And that makes me happy. So this relationship that we get to share, because there's a genuineness that's available, a depth that I didn't know. When life was there to serve me, to get what I wanted, when I wanted, the way I wanted, it was this shallow skimming. And Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life that is, this woman back here, I inherited a kidney disease 15 years ago. She goes, well, they're failing. I go, yeah, I got to get a transplant. She goes, well, you can have one of mine. Never been in the hospital for anything. We both go in, they harvest her kidney, they shove it in me. 15 years later, it's working great. Great. I mean, you don't do that for somebody that you don't want to stick around with. Even at the 11th hour, they go, Laura, we got all kinds of reasons why you don't have to do this. We can tell Michael a lot of shit. You sure? She says, yeah, I'm sure. So it isn't luck. It's sincerity. It's opportunity. There's a lot of really good words that we, it's all the other ones we don't have to be a part of anymore. Despair, misery, alone, frustrated, fearful, worried, regrets. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.